She had 9 different passports, 9 different names, 9 different nationalities. Her fingerprints had been deliberately removed. Her clothing labels had been cut out, and every single item that could have identified her had been destroyed before she died. Norwegian police investigated for 2 years. They contacted Interpol and interviewed hundreds of witnesses across 14 countries. In 1972, they closed the case, and they still don't know who she was. This is the story of the elusive Isdal Woman. On the 29th of November 1970, 2 hikers walking through Isdalen, a narrow valley outside Bergen, Norway, found a body. She was lying on her back in the snow, and she was still burning. Around her, an empty bottle of sleeping pills, 2 bottles of liquor, and a few personal items arranged in an odd deliberateness to them, as if placed rather than dropped. The valley had a name locals had used for centuries: the Valley of Death. Norwegian police arrived, they secured the scene, and began working backwards through the evidence. What they found over the following days would become one of the most heavily investigated and completely unresolved identity mysteries in modern European history. Just 3 days before the body was found, staff at Bergen railway station had noticed 2 unclaimed suitcases in a left luggage locker. Inside was clothing, shoes, and a collection of personal items, and 8 passports. Each one issued in a different country, a different name, but each one with her photograph. Belgian authorities confirmed one of the passports had been forged, then another, and another. Every single document came back false. The names were invented. The nationalities, they were borrowed. The woman in the photographs existed under none of them. Police circulated her image across all of Europe. Slowly, witnesses began to surface. A hotel in Stavanger remembered her. She had checked in under one name, behaved oddly, and left without much explanation. A hotel in Bergen remembered her checking in under a different name entirely. Witnesses in Nuremberg placed her there. Frankfurt, Paris, Geneva, and Rome, all describing the same woman. Always alone, always paying in cash, and always gone before anyone could know her. In total, investigators traced her movements across 9 European countries in the months leading to her death. She had been everywhere, yet she had been no one. Unfortunately, the forensic examination had raised more questions than it answered. The cause of death was listed as a combination of sleeping pill intoxication and carbon monoxide poisoning, but the positioning of the body, the deliberate destruction of identifying features, and the arrangement of items around her didn't fit a straightforward suicide. Her fingerprints had not been worn away. They had been completely removed. The skin on the tips of both fingers had been deliberately abraded, a process that takes sustained effort and intention. This is not something a person does to themselves just casually. The clothing labels had been cut out of every garment she owned. Not some of them, all of them. Every single brand, every country of manufacture, every thread of traceable origin, completely gone. She had prepared for the possibility to be found, and she had also prepared for the possibility of being identified. She had made sure that that latter thing would never happen. Amongst her belongings, investigators had found a diary, yet it was written in a code. Not your simple substitution cipher, a layered system using multiple languages, abbreviations, and numerical sequences that Norwegian intelligence analysts spent decades attempting to crack. In 2016, a whole 46 years after her death, the Norwegian public broadcaster, NRK, worked with cryptographers to partially decode sections of the diary. What they found was not a confession, and it was not a name. It was a record of movement. Cities, dates, initials, numbers that may have been contact references, or financial figures, or something else entirely. The diary of a woman moving across Europe with extraordinary precision, meeting with people whose names she never wrote in full, staying in places she documented only partially, and living a life so carefully constructed that even in her own private record of it, it told investigators almost nothing. Almost. Because buried inside the decoded sections were references to specific hotels, to a meeting, and to something she described only as the assignment. And the theories never stopped. The most persistent one, and the one Norwegian investigators themselves have never fully dismissed, is that she was a spy. The Cold War was at its peak in 1970. Bergen was a significant port city amongst NATO's northern flank. The movement of Soviet submarines through Norwegian waters was one of the most sensitive intelligence concerns in Western Europe at that time. A woman moving across 9 European countries under 9 false identities, paying only in cash, meeting unnamed contacts, and documenting an assignment in an encrypted diary. This is not the behavior of a normal tourist. And it's not even the behavior of a criminal in any conventional sense either. It is the behavior of someone operating inside a structure that provided her with documents, money, and the movement that had every reason to ensure she could never be traced back to it. Which raises the question nobody has been able to answer. If she was working for someone, where were they when she died? And why did no one ever come back to collect her? But there is another possibility, one that the investigators have never been able to truly close the door on. What if there wasn't just one woman? The witness accounts collected across the 9 European countries don't 100% agree with each other. The woman in Stavanger was described slightly different to the woman in Bergen. Heights varied, hair colour varied, the small details that investigators could simply attribute to the fallibility of witness memory. But some researchers never felt comfortable simply dismissing it like that. The theory is this: the identity infrastructure, the 9 passports, the cache, the movement pattern, the encrypted diary, it may not have belonged to just a single operative. It may have belonged to an entire network. In the years following this case, investigators received hundreds of potential identifications from families across Europe and beyond. One of the most compelling came from the United States, a young American woman who had gone missing in Europe around the same time, whose physical description matched closely enough that her family were contacted directly. Ultimately, however, she was ruled out, but the process of ruling her out raised a question that nobody had thought to ask before. If the Isdal woman's identity had been so thoroughly dismantled that not even Interpol themselves could reconstruct it, then how confident could anyone be that they were looking for one person at all? The investigation had assumed from the beginning that the woman in the valley and the woman in the passport photographs were the same individual, but that assumption has never actually been proven. After Norwegian police sent her case to Interpol, they circulated her details to member countries across the world, yet not a single government came forward. Not one intelligence agency acknowledged her. No family filed a missing persons report that matched her description, and no embassy tried to make contact. No organization, official or otherwise, ever indicated that they knew who she was. And the case was formally closed in 1972, with a verdict of suicide by person or persons unknown. The 2 hikers who found her burning in that alley were never fully convinced, and neither were the investigators. Following NRK's 2016 investigation into the case produced something quite unexpected: a forensic facial reconstruction, a detailed geographic profile of her final months, a renewed public appeal across all of Europe. Thousands of tips came in, yet none of them held. But one detail from the investigation stopped researchers in their tracks. The sleeping pills found at the scene were a specific brand only available in certain European countries at that time. The liquor bottles too, they were traceable to just a specific region. Every item around her body pointed to a different direction, as if the scene had been constructed to point everywhere, yet nowhere simultaneously. As if someone who understood forensic investigation had designed it that way. In 2017, the Norwegian police officially reopened the case. Using advances in DNA technology, they extracted a genetic profile. They ran it against every available database. No match. She remains unidentified. There is actually a grave out in Bergen. She's buried there under a marker that reads simply Ukjent kvinne, unknown woman, the date of death and the location, yet nothing else. No name, nationality, no record of where she came from, or what she was doing, or who sent her there, or why she ended up burning in a valley that had been called the Valley of Death long before she arrived. Every few years, someone brings her flowers, but nobody knows who leaves them. The case file sits on the Norwegian police archives, open, technically, since 2017. DNA extracted, profile built, but no match found anywhere on Earth. Somewhere out there, there's a family who lost someone in 1970 and never knew where she went. Or there's an organization that knew exactly where she went and decided she was easier to leave for dead. She prepared so carefully to remain unknown that even in death, even with the full resources of European law enforcement, Interpol, and 50 years of forensic advancement, she kept her secret. Whether she kept it willingly is the only question that matters now, and the valley where they found her isn't going to tell anyone anything either.